Hello, I'm Judi Neal, and today I want to talk about workplace spirituality, good for society, good for business. I want to talk about three things. The first is how the narrative of business is changing. The second is to describe this current perfect storm of societal crises. And the third is to look at what are conscious businesses doing in response to these crises and the current situation. First, a little bit about who I am. I am a PhD from Yale University and have a background as an internal consultant for Honeywell doing organizational development. I was a management professor for 17 years at the University of New Haven, and then following that became the first founding director of the Tyson Center for Faith and Spirituality in the Workplace at the University of Arkansas. Currently, I run my own consulting firm called Edgewalkers International, and I spend a lot of volunteer time working with the Academy of Management, particularly the Management, Spirituality, and Religion Interest Group that I helped co-found. I'm the author of 6 books on workplace spirituality and a whole lot of journal articles that are research-based on workplace spirituality. And in my spare time, I love to play music. I'm in an all-woman band. I play electric bass and play guitar and write songs. My band's called She's Us. So that's a little bit about me. And then I also wanted to give you some definitions of some of the key terms that I'm going to be using. The first one is spirituality. So we're talking about workplace spirituality, and what do I mean when I say the word spirituality? Some people are concerned that when we talk about workplace spirituality, we're talking about religion in the workplace, but that's not it specifically. Religion and spirituality are not exactly the same things. Religion being a institutionalized form of spirituality that creates a sense of community and fellowship and has certain shared beliefs, whereas spirituality is a more generic term. And when you look at the definitions in all the research articles, just about every single one of those definitions has the word connection in it. And that's very simplest form. I think that workplace spirituality and spirituality in general means 2 forms of connection. And one I would call the vertical form and the other the horizontal form. So the vertical form is a connection to something greater than ourselves. Many people would call that God, Allah, Buddha mind, cosmic consciousness. There's a lot of words for the transcendent, but a connection to something greater than ourselves. And then the horizontal connection is a connection to others, especially being of service to others. And that would be to our customers, to our vendors, to our fellow co-workers. The key elements of spirituality and workplace spirituality specifically is a belief that we're all spiritual beings on a spiritual journey, that is a part of our human nature, that we're each here for a reason. We have a calling, and that what really is a way of expressing our spirituality in our work is when we find meaning and purpose, and we can live out of that sense of meaning and purpose. So that becomes a real challenge for organizations if they really want to nurture the whole human being and their spirit, is to do that through really creating a sense of meaning and purpose for their employees. So we talk about changing the narrative of business. Things have been shifting in the last couple of decades. And the belief now is that when we nourish the human spirit in the workplace, then there's a ripple effect from that, that we also nourish the family and we nourish society. We nourish local communities and the greater society. So I'd like to read something from this book, Creative Work by Willis Harman and John Horman, that really got me to thinking about the role of business in society. John Horman writes, "Business, the motor of our society, has the opportunity to be a new creative force on the planet, a force which could contribute to the well-being of many. For that to occur, we must all substantially increase our commitment to integrity and accountability and courageously make a quantum leap in consciousness. That's a real important sentence. Courageously make a quantum leap in consciousness, beyond conventional solutions, beyond opposing forces, beyond fear and hope. So there are so many challenges in the world today, and so quickly to name 4 of them is the pandemic crisis, which has become a global crisis and affects everybody in one way or another. The racism crisis, which also is a global humanity crisis, one where we do not, in general, seem to accept everyone as equal, and we don't treat everyone with dignity and respect. That needs to change if humanity is going to evolve, if business is going to be good for society. We have a leadership crisis where there's been a focus on authoritarian leadership, on a focus on gaining more power rather than doing what's good for the greatest number of people. And all of that's embedded in the climate crisis that seems to have gotten overshadowed by these other crises. But it's there, and it's a crisis of interconnectedness. In fact, each of these crises is a spiritual crisis. And the bottom line is that these crises evolve because we don't see our oneness. We don't see our interconnectedness with others. But there are some business leaders, I call them edge walkers, and I've written a book about that. Edge walkers are spiritually centered in oneness, and they put their spiritual values and practices as the center of how they lead. 2 that I want to tell you about briefly are Robert Ouimet, who was the chairman of the board of OCB Holding Company in Montreal, the largest frozen food manufacturer in Canada. And he had a model of 2 systems, 2 management systems, and one was the economic management system, and the other was the human system. And he said that they're always like 2 pillars. They're often opposing and difficult to balance the 2. And in his experience, and he's deeply involved in his Catholic faith, in his experience, there was something that joined them and held them together and made them be able to balance. And that was a keystone that fit between the 2 pillars. And the keystone he called God, or love. And he said with God's help, he was able to become a leader that could balance the economic systems and the human systems. And then another business leader I want to tell you about is Fred Sau, who is the chairman of the board of IMG. He wrote with Chris Laszlo this book called Quantum Leadership, New Consciousness in Business. So I want to read something where he talks about love. He says, quantum leaders are rising to meet tomorrow's challenges. And quantum leaders, he means leaders who are based in spirituality. The quantum leadership approach is about evolving leadership from the inside out. It is about aligning motivation with creative energy, the energy of love. Most of us would acknowledge that you cannot create enduring positive benefits out of fear. And many people already accept the idea that great creations come from a place of love. If you align your energy as a leader, then you have the creative power to change the world for the better. And we need leaders who can evolve the world in this direction. In fact, and he puts this in italics to emphasize that, if we do not change the world, then the world will change us, most likely in directions we do not want. This is an important message for business people. So I want to give you some examples of quantum leaders or edge walkers. And these are programs, not the leaders, but the programs inside companies. One of them is Google, and you're probably all familiar with the Search Inside Yourself program within Google that has spread like wildfire to other companies. It's based on mindfulness, and it's based on self-awareness, self-knowledge. All of those are spiritual principles and practices. There's a program in Methodist Healthcare that is a 3-year spiritual leadership program where people take spiritual assessments. They have spiritual support through spiritual director, and they learn about workplace spirituality. That company also has a VP of spiritual care. There's a number of companies that have meditation rooms or silence rooms. Pfizer is one of those. And then there's companies like Eileen Fisher and Whole Foods that really focus on sustainability as well as supporting personal growth and spiritual development of employees. So they focus on acquiring and selling sustainable products, really having high integrity vendor relationships. There's other companies that look at it from a diversity perspective, like Ford Motor Company, where they have the Ford Interfaith Network. I wanted to read you the Methodist Healthcare belief statement, and I'll end with this. As it fulfills this purpose, the system participates in the redeeming activity of God that makes the world a better place for all of humankind. This health system is based on the belief that God can heal through the lives, actions, and words of persons, regardless of various religious perspectives. Therefore, in all endeavors, the Methodist healthcare system strives to treat everyone it serves as of sacred worth and value, created by God. Thank you so much for listening. If you'd like to know more about me and my work, I'm Judi Neal, and my website is www.edgewalkers.org, and I want to wish you a very blessed day.